Good evening, folks. Good evening, folks. It's your bro Richie again. Uh, Tonight in this video is now part 2 on the DeLorean time machine from Back to the Future. And so the next part we're on is to the future. This is linked to the second installment. So without any further ado, let's begin. So, to the future. Here we go. Doc Doc returned. Doc returned to the McFly residence the morning after he left. Marty had discovered that his life had changed for the better. His visiting girlfriend, Jennifer Parker, who was played by Claudia Wells in the first movie. And played by Elizabeth Shue in part 2 and 3. It's like the word shoe, but what you wear. But without the letter O, it's replaced with a U. So yeah, Doc returned to the McFly residence. The morning after he left, Marty had discovered that his life had changed for the better. His visiting girlfriend, Jennifer Parker, played by Claudia Wells in the first movie, and played by Elizabeth Shue in parts 2 and 3. And not only Jennifer was voiced by Claudia Wells in the first movie, she was also voiced in the 2010 video game of Back to the Future. Interesting. I didn't know that. Anyways, yeah. Doc returned to the McFly residence. The morning after he left, Marty had discovered that his life had changed for the better. His visiting girlfriend, Jennifer Parker, played by Elizabeth Shue, and him were interrupted by the sonic boom and wind blast. The newly upgraded DeLorean knocked over some trash cans, and a futuristic clothed Doc emerged from the time machine. Doc made use of his upgraded time machine by adding garbage to the Mr. Fusion as fuel. Plutonium was no longer needed. After the trip to the future, Doc told Marty and Jennifer of their future family and the trouble that occurred or would occur with their kids. The DeLorean lifted off the ground, and its wheels folded, providing thrust, which is a error conversion done in the early 21st century. The rear louver then propelled it forward down the street, and Doc turned the car around to get the speed needed to make temporal displacement. This entire sequence was witnessed by Biff Tannen, played by Thomas F. Wilson. So this entire sequence was witnessed by Biff Tannen. Played by Thomas F. Wilson. Thomas Francis Wilson, Jr., born April 15th, 1959, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So the DeLorean lifted off the ground and its wheels folded, providing thrust. The rear louver then propelled it forward down the street, and Doc turned the car around to get the speed needed to make temporal displacement. This entire sequence was witnessed by Biff Tannen, played by Thomas F. Wilson, in the McFly driveway as the DeLorean took the skies and vanished, leaving behind its characteristic fire trails. The time machine entered October 21st, 2015, then descended through the clouds. then descended through the clouds into a busy skyway. It's like a highway, for driving with cars. But instead of wheels on the ground, it's lifted off the ground like hover conversion done in the early 21st century. So they then descended through the clouds into a busy skyway, nearly in the wrong lane of multi-level traffic. Doc pulled off onto an exit ramp to downtown Hill Valley. He landed the DeLorean. Landed the DeLorean in an alleyway, just outside Courthouse Square. Then left while Marty completed his mission to save his son, Marty Jr. After Doc recovered Einstein from a suspended animation kennel, he pulled the DeLorean out into the open, where he pulled the DeLorean. He pulled the DeLorean suspended animation kennel. He pulled the DeLorean out. He pulled the DeLorean out into the open, where Old Biff saw it and eventually put two and two together to realize that they were time travelers. This quote was funny. Flying DeLorean. I haven't seen one of those in 30 years. That was a cool quote. The best one I liked was when he said, "So, Doc Brown invented the time machine." So, Doc Brown invented the time machine. Yep, my impersonation of Biff was just terrible. Anyway, speaking of Biff, he followed both Doc and Marty in a taxi cab, and while the DeLoreans parked outside Hilldale, while Marty was changing from 2015 to his 1985 clothing, and while the DeLorean was parked outside Hilldale, Biff stole it and went back to the past, back to 1955, to hand the GSA, Gray Sports Almanac, which I used to have years ago. It was more of like a notepad because there was nothing on it. It was just plain paper. There was like no words or anything like that. So I just threw it away, just like in the movie. But in the movie, it was burned. But I threw it away in the trash when I was in high school. But it was fun while it lasted, but whatever. Anyways, Biff followed Doc and Marty into a taxi cab, and while the DeLorean was parked outside Hilldale, Biff stole it and went back to 1955 to hand the Gray Sports Almanac that Doc had thrown away to his younger self. Therefore, altering history, in a matter of minutes, Biff returned the car in the same position. However, he was feeling the effects of changing history. In pain, he left the silver. The silver colored plastic bag, NRC 40 almanac, as well as the top of his cane. Which broke off. Which broke off in the DeLorean when he doubled over. I think he got caught in the steering wheel. He just pulled off, just punched himself in his stomach with his walking cane. It's painful to see. Jesus. So in pain, he left both the silver-colored plastic bag and receipt for the almanac, as well as the top of his cane, which broke off in the DeLorean when he doubled over. Getting out of view, Biff slumped to the ground and faded from existence. Which I believe there was deleted scenes from that. So faded from existence. Behind a parked car, Doc and Marty, unaware that anything happened, returned to the time machine with Jennifer and headed back for 1985, alternate 1985. Anyway, speaking of adding back, we're on the alternate timeline. By this time, it was too late. By this time, it was too late to prevent the changing of the timeline. Flying at a high altitude, the DeLorean's nearly hit by an airliner in the sky. The time circuits began to malfunction as well, indicating 1885 temporarily. After discovering the truth, after discovering the truth, um, after discovering the truth behind the alternate 1985, Doc and Marty left Einstein in Doc's garage and Jennifer in her house, where time would alter around them, pending a change in the past. They traveled back to November 12th, 1955. That was 10 years after the Second World War, which they won. The date that Biff. So they traveled back to November 12th, 1955. The date that Biff revealed to have been the day he had gotten the almanac. Doc parked the time machine behind the same sign that Marty hid in the. So Doc parked the time machine behind the same sign that. Doc parked the time machine behind the same sign that Marty hid it the first time in 1955, but was without the hover conversion at that time. Marty notified Doc of his status with Biff, and after some repairs, Doc jumped Doc jumped into the DeLorean to pick him up at high. So Doc jumped into the DeLorean to pick him up at high to pick him up at Hill Valley High School. As Doc left Leon Estates, the car had hooked onto some of the pennants of the sign. Doc and Marty followed Biff in his car and hovered over him. hovered hovered over him until Marty thought of using the hoverboard to get closer. Marty grabbed the almanac after some fighting, but was faced with being in the middle of a long tunnel. From which to escape. At the end of the tunnel, Doc dropped the string of pennants that he had hooked onto earlier, and Marty grabbed the rope in time to prevent himself from getting run over by Biff. Who crashed for the second time in a week into a manure truck. Returning to Leon Estates to destroy the almanac, Doc lowered Marty onto the ground, but deemed it unsafe to land the DeLorean. To land the DeLorean in the storm. Marty successfully burned the almanac in an old bucket, reverting all effects that had been created by 2015 Biff. The celebration was short-lived. Lightning struck a tree close to Marty, who warned Doc about getting struck himself. In the next instant, however, lightning struck the DeLorean as feared, spinning it up to 88 miles an hour, thus creating the fire trails. In the shape of backward nines. and you get 99 or something, I don't know. Scrambling the circuits and sent both Doc and the DeLorean back to January 1st, 1885. It's 1885. Less than a minute later, a man representing less than a minute later, a man representing Western Union appeared on the rain. Appear less than a minute later, a man representing Western Union appear a man Western Union appeared on the rainy street and handed Marty a letter. The letter from Doc. The letter from Doc had been held in their possession for over 70 years. So from 1885 to 1955. So for over 70 years. With instructions for delivery to that exact position, exact position at the exact position at the exact to that exact position at that exact moment to that exact person, Marty. Marty ran back downtown, uh, arriving just moments after his other self was going back to the future, and after the temporal displacement, he encountered 1955 Doc, who then fainted. Alright, so that's gonna wrap it up for now. So if you guys like this video, like, subscribe, comment below what y'all think. Hit that notification bell and tell all so you learn to make great help. So that'll be it. I'll see you guys later for the next video. Till then, stay safe, have a great evening, have a great day tomorrow morning. Or if it's morning now, have a great morning and also have a great day as well. And I'll see you guys soon. And I'll see you guys soon in the next video. So yeah, take care, folks. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys a little later. Peace.